The idea that he can return without any questions being raised or answered about that, I don't think it shows that the media, let's say they're a big cabal, working hand in glove with one another, because you can just move from one channel to another. I don't think it shows that they have the most morally upright reputation. Let's put it that way. And also, I think Phillip Schofield's a fascinating proxy for the incentive structure, the moral incentive structure of culture at the moment. Because what did he do to get out in front of these allegations of sexual impropriety? Well, he decided to make a big song and dance of him coming out as gay and essentially abandoning his family. And the media paid little to no attention to how this would affect his wife and children.
2024 was also the year that Phillip Schofield, without any sense of shame, decided to make a mainstream media comeback at number 36 on our list of the worst of 2024. Watch this. Phillip Schofield has been marooned on an island for a brand new 3-part, very sympathetic Channel 5 show, which is designed to see him return full-time to the entertainment industry. Here is the first look.
I've been cast away on a desert island completely on my own. All I have is camera gear, and I can say whatever I want about whatever I want. It's my chance to tell my side of my story. I know what I did was unwise, but is it enough to absolutely destroy someone?
Phillips.
Connor Tomlinson, it's interesting, isn't it, that we speak about figures like Katie Hopkins, Tommy Robinson, even you and I, being considered completely unpalatable to the mainstream media, yet Phillip Schofield, given this big platform on Channel 5 without any explanation as to actually what happened with the young boy.
Yeah, I think given he left under a dark cloud of sexual impropriety, let's put it in a tactical fashion, the idea that he can return without any questions being raised or answered about that, I don't think it shows that the media, let's say they're a big cabal, working hand in glove with one another, because you can just move from one channel to another. I don't think it shows that they have the most morally upright reputation. Let's put it that way. And also, I think Phillip Schofield's a fascinating proxy for the incentive structure, the moral incentive structure of culture at the moment. Because what did he do to get out in front of these allegations of sexual impropriety? Well, he decided to make a big song and dance of him coming out as gay and essentially abandoning his family. And the media paid little to no attention to how this would affect his wife and children. Instead, he got Stalin-esque rounds of applause on Dancing on Ice and a very sympathetic struggle session that Eamon Holmes had to be a part of on This Morning. And then all of that's made a big celebration of. But then these allegations, as soon as they hit, he, much like Hugh Edwards as well, decided to play the mental health card. So it seems that the incentive structures at the moment are set up where you can feign victimhood as long as you fall into one of these oppressed minority groups, the mentally ill or the members of the LGBT Rainbow Brigade, sexual political activists. And that completely expunges you of any questions about impropriety because you're useful as an avatar of the kind of politics the media would like to advance. Personally, I take it as a badge of honor that I wouldn't be invited on these sorts of channels because fundamentally, as we discussed at the top of the show, Dan, I've got quite a normal personal life. And I think that that matters just as much as my unacceptable politics as to why I wouldn't be brought in the big club.
Well, indeed, because the thing is, Phillip Schofield was not just the mainstream media didn't just ignore the fact that he had trashed his entire family. They actually celebrated him for it. He won awards at the Attitude magazine party as some sort of hero. And there was no thought about the consequence for his for his children and for his wife. But there was also no thought about the consequences on the young man who he had met at a very young age, brought into ITV, given him this job. He had stars in his eyes. He thought he was going to be a big presenter, and his life is now trashed. Now, I feel very, very strongly that people are, of course, innocent until proven guilty. You saw the completely insane witch hunt against me, which was based on absolutely nothing and has proven to be true. But again, I just look at the different ways that people treated Phillip Schofield in terms of how people treated me. And it does show you that there is a real corruption, actually, at the heart of the entertainment industry.
Yeah, very much so. And I think this is also coincides with this story about Greg Wallace at the moment. Now, again, he's denying absolutely everything with both his legal advisors and, let's say, a clumsy social media video about women of a certain age. I am less interested in accusations of Greg Wallace behaving like a character from Men Behaving Badly, or The Carry-Ons, or Red Dwarf, or any of these post-sexual revolution British sitcoms which have formed the personalities of, let's say, men of a certain age if they're in their 60s, like Greg Wallace. He might well be a bit of a lewd and crude chap, and I think that's ungentlemanly. But I do find it interesting that this has been front page news for a few days now about the culture at the BBC, whereas Phillip Schofield seems that he can make a return to Channel 5, and Hugh Edwards, obviously a lot more severe case, but symptomatic of a culture at the BBC that covered up Jimmy Savile for quite a while, and then Hugh Edwards. They didn't make as big of a song and dance about that. They didn't say the need for institutional reform, as a lot of glamour feminists are about Greg Wallace's jokes. And the BBC themselves weren't outraged when Hugh Edwards didn't get any prison time despite having child sexual exploitation material. So I think they have a tendency to make larger stories to do with this witch hunt against language of sexual impropriety, but actual conduct of sexual impropriety, even when it rises to the criminal standard, when Hugh Edwards gets a little mention. And it just leaves me wondering why.
Oh, big time. Greg Wallace wasn't part of their gang. They were actually embarrassed that a bit of a crude working class guy like Greg Wallace could end up being so successful within the BBC, which is why you have seen this vindictiveness and this vengeance to cancel him without any sense of due process. And in fact, that leads me on quite nicely to number 35 on the list of the worst of 2024, which is what I have described as Strictly Come Dancing's snowflake scandal, where Amanda Abbington, aided and abetted, yet again by the mainstream media, attempted to cancel the show because her dance partner, Giovanni Pinacci, had been a little bit rude to her in a couple of the training sessions. But watch the lovely interview with Christian Guri-Murthy.
Because you start to think, well, you know, am I going mad, you know? But as, you know, I'm not mad, as you know. But yeah, it's been brutal and relentless and unforgiving.
We will talk about the play, but
yes,
I feel we have to talk about this because...
I mean, Connor, again, I want to clarify, I actually like Amanda Abbington. Amanda Abbington was very, very sound during lockdown. She was one of the few members of the entertainment establishment who was prepared to put her head above the parapet. However, I completely disagree with what she did here. She wanted to destroy this guy, Giovanni. And again, it feels like he was maybe a little bit tough on her during some of the dancing sessions, maybe made a couple of inappropriate cracks, but he was made out in the mainstream media to be some sort of criminal. It was insane, the hysteria around this.
I find these stories very just self-indulgent. Again, I've got nothing against Amanda or Giovanni. Do I disbelieve that there are divas in the media industry? I think you and I both know that's very much the case, Dan. But given the pressing nature of all of the problems in our country right now, to have stories like Greg Wallace's impropriety and edgy jokes, or a little bit of bullying behind the scenes on Strictly, which does that really need to be headline news? Does that really need some ego massaging interviews? Does that need more of an investigation into workplace culture than the BBC's reliable employment of actual predators? I would wager no, and I would think that had 2024 focused on a lot of other issues rather than make a large media circus out of those two previous stories, we would be in a lot more sensible a place.
Indeed, we would. Now, what I find so appalling about the mainstream media is their double standards. At number 34 on the worst of 2024, David Aronovich, the BBC presenter who is very much loved by the liberal establishment, suggests just a few days before Donald Trump is the victim of an assassination attempt that Joe Biden, the then president, should shoot the guy who's challenging him. I summed up the story when I was in Florida here. But first, you know how often I talk about the need for free speech to be protected, but I've been increasingly thinking of the need for personal protection from snoopers, bad actors, and hackers online. And I'm delighted to tell you I've now found the fail-safe solution. But what's more, this VPN, or virtual private network to use the full term, is also a life changer when it comes to providing you entertainment and information from anywhere in the world, wherever you are. So let me introduce you to Surfshark, an incredible and easy to use service that encrypts all your internet traffic, meaning your online activity stays safe so you can shop, stream, browse, and conduct your banking online in complete privacy. But the benefits of Surfshark go way beyond keeping you safe online. It allows you to access your favorite entertainment and news shows and channels, including to streaming services like Hulu, iPlayer, HBO Max, and Peacock. Or if your favorite show is blocked on one of your existing services, like Survivor, for me here in the UK on Netflix, but it could also be on Amazon Prime or Disney Plus, within seconds you can be watching as if you're in another country. If you're traveling for work or on holiday, you can also get all your favorite content from home, including sports. And also, this is an insurance policy against creeping censorship in many countries. For example, France has blocked Rumble for many months now. No issues if you've got Surfshark. You can watch anything, anytime, anywhere. It is true freedom. A VPN can save you money too, because you can get the best deals from websites that change their prices depending on where you're buying them from. And there are other benefits too. You can use Surfshark on unlimited devices. As you can see, I've got a few here on my computer, or your entire family can stay safe with just one subscription. And with over 3,200 servers in 100 countries, there is a world of choice at your fingertips. And if this is your first time using a VPN, there is 24/7 customer service available to you. So if you go to right now, surfshark.com/outspoken, you get an extra 4 months of Surfshark at an unbeatable price. What's more, Surfshark so confident they're the best VPN in the world that you can give it a try for a full 30 days. And if you're not entirely satisfied, you will get your money back. So go to surfshark.com/outspoken for an extra 4 months of Surfshark at an unbeatable price. Just click on the link in the description box below. But now, back to the show. BBC presenter David Aronovich has just called on X for Joe Biden to kill President Trump because he claims he is a threat to national security. Because this tweet is so insane, let me read it to you exactly. So David Aronovich writes, "If I was Biden, I'd hurry up and have Trump murdered on the basis that he is a threat to America's security. Hashtag SCOTUS," referring to today's Supreme Court ruling. Now, this is wrong
on so many levels. But I think one of the things that angers me most is how is this sort of incitement to violence completely acceptable when it comes from the left? We have seen absolute hysteria. People go to prison for years and years and years for simply entering the US Capitol on January the 6th. Yet a BBC presenter can call for the assassination of Trump seemingly with no pushback from the media elite and the swamp.
And Connor Tomlinson, that was my issue with this, the hypocrisy. Because all of a sudden, folk on the left and in the mainstream media started saying, oh, just take a joke. Come on, just take a joke. He only suggested that Biden shoot Trump. It was satirical. Don't be so ridiculous. But this is the same left, the same mainstream media that will, as we've just discussed in the case of Greg Wallace, cancel people, ruin their entire reputation for a joke.
Yes, well, Dan, I think I'm not making a novel observation when I say that for them, it's not about hypocrisy, it's about hierarchy, because hypocrisy implies that they would see you as moral equals and they should extend you the same moral courtesy. They don't. They see us as an enemy faction who are standing in the way of an offense-free utopia where we all hold hands and sing John Lennon's Imagine. And therefore, because we are roadblocks on the way to that utopia, we can be driven over as if we are speed bumps. And so they don't extend us the same moral courtesy. This particular argument from Aronovich, there's two elements at play here. The first, for those who might not remember, the Supreme Court was arguing whether or not the president would have immunity from doing certain illegal activities. And many misinterpreted the ruling because what would be said is that the president would first have to be impeached by Congress before being criminally prosecuted. He couldn't just be criminally prosecuted for something like an extrajudicial assassination or for corruption charges. And I think you're seeing this sort of legal mechanism play out right now with Joe Biden pardoning his son Hunter Biden for, let's say, an innocuous gun charge. I think it was in 2018, but the pardon stretches back to 2014 when Hunter Biden was on the Burisma board, giving money to Joe Biden as the big guy. So Joe Biden's basically pardoned himself here, knowing how the Supreme Court ruling would turn out. As for the urge to assassinate President Trump, well, this is just a long pattern of the allies of the Democrats, both in the UK and US, their rhetoric leading up to the two attempted assassinations on President Trump, one that was miraculously missed by a slight tilt of the head to look at illegal immigration figures. And people say that divine providence isn't a real thing. What they mean by democracy when they call Trump a threat to democracy is a threat to the egalitarian presumption that if it weren't for divisive racist populism setting people at odds because they notice cultural and behavioral differences between groups of people from different times and places, if it weren't for that misinformation, everyone would vote in exactly the same way because everyone is exactly the same because we're all equal and free. This is sort of liberal Marxist anthropology from the 17 and 1800s. And so they think genuinely that if you don't vote for Democrats, democracy didn't work. And so they think that anyone who isn't a Democrat, because the Democrats are acting on behalf of everyone's equal self-interest, is a threat to democracy, and they're akin to a fascist. And therefore, all you need to do is censor, silence, or shoot, in the case of President Trump, all of these threats to democracy, and we'll get that offense-free utopia. And so they see absolutely nothing wrong with encouraging political violence against their political opponents because they have a priori, ahead of time, defined themselves as infallibly correct. And all you're doing is getting in the way of them flat pack assembling a world that we'd actually all like to live in if we just stopped being divisive, populist racists.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. And goodness me, thinking about divine intervention, I mean, Connor, you're so right. Just a couple of millimeters and the world could look very different in 2024. It's just astonishing to think about, isn't it?
Quite. I mean, I remember where I was. I'm not old enough to remember 9/11. I think I'm just aged all of your viewers.
Me too. Goodness me.
I do remember where I was with the Trump assassination.
Yeah.
I was in the States. I just boarded a plane due back for Heathrow. And I checked my phone, I'd logged onto the Wi-Fi, and I'd refreshed my page. And within about 2 seconds ago that the video had been posted, and I just looked around the plane to see when everyone else was catching up. Some people watching CNN, some people on their phones. It was a real moment of, we didn't know whether Trump was alive or dead. We didn't know how badly he was injured. We didn't know who had fired the shot. But we didn't know at that time that poor Corey Comparator had been killed, shielding his family. We didn't know what was going to happen. And it really was a matter of, if he just hadn't turned his head at that slight angle to look at the graph, America would be in a completely different place. They wouldn't have their incumbent president. And the world, geopolitically, would be in a state of much more, it would be on the precipice of war.
Really would. It really would. And it is funny, isn't it? You think about those moments in your life, and certainly for me, the death of Princess Diana, 9/11, and then the attempted assassination on Donald Trump. And I don't think there is an image in my lifetime more impactful than that. Goodness me, what a year it could have been. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source, and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.